2, 1.
Hi, I'm Armin Budish. Welcome to our focus on public policy issues, and we're going to take you inside some of the most important public policy issues. Today, we're looking at violence in the cities, and I'll tell you, it seems to have gotten a lot worse than it's been, and in part, it's because cities have been so limited in what they can do. There's probably two significant limitations. One is that the state has really put clamps on what cities can do, especially with gun violence. And second is the difficulty in hiring enough law enforcement officials these days. And we'll talk to our experts on both of those issues. I'm really happy we have two experts here with us today. We have Mark Griffin, who's the law director in Cleveland, and we have Dr. Stephanie Kent, who's a professor in Cleveland's Levin College, and you'll tell us about some of your background, but why don't you guys introduce yourselves first, and then we'll get to the meat.
Sure, please.
My name is Stephanie Kent. I'm a professor in the Sociology and Criminology department here at Cleveland State, and part of the Levin Urban College of Public Affairs and Education. And
it's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah. Trying to get used to the new name. And I also am part of our Criminology Research Center that has been getting grant funding to do a number of interesting projects, including evaluations of the Shotspotter technology here in Cleveland.
Which I want to get into, but let's let Mark
Sure, and
tell
I'm
who
Mark
he is.
Griffin, and I'm the law director for the City of Cleveland for Mayor Bibb, and also with City Council as well. And so part of my office of 85 attorneys includes 17 prosecutors. So if there's a crime that occurs in the City of Cleveland that gets charged, it gets charged initially by one of my prosecutors, and if it's a felony, it goes up to the county. But so we also work with the monitoring team for the Department of Justice's consent decree, and work closely with both the safety director, the Cleveland Police Department, but also community groups to make sure that we are trying to address safety concerns in a constitutional manner.
So as you can see, they're experts in what we're talking about today. Why has gun violence in particular, violence generally, but gun violence in particular, seems to have increased so much in our cities, not only Cleveland, but all over the country?
Very complicated question, and trying to figure out what causes violence is hard to know. And so we've looked at a couple of different issues, whether it's economic, whether it's a bump from COVID. But one of those issues are the things that you've touched upon, which is that crimes now are more violent than they've been before because of the proliferation of guns. What used to be a bar fight turns into a gunfight. And that's the sort of thing which has led us to increase in our murder rate that we're trying to do everything to fight against.
Professor Kent, what do you think about the increase in violence?
Right. I would agree. I think I usually use the same analogy about what would be a bar fight is now, a homicide. I would also say that the poverty levels in our urban areas across the country have not improved and mostly have gotten worse. And there's social reasons why we've seen increases in crime. But I also would add that Cleveland's not alone in this. Pretty much every big urban area in the country is experiencing a surge in violence.
All you have to do is go to any media platform and you see violence all over the place. So,
and it's being made even worse by kind of the glorification on social media, where you can see it on TikTok or on Instagram or Facebook to that extent as well. But the professor's right. It's this toxic mix of poverty, racism, but also a change in the mores and the availability of guns and weapons.
So I know that the state of Ohio has really handcuffed cities, and in particular cities like Cleveland, where there's been an increase. How has the state impacted what you can do?
Yeah, we have on the books of Cleveland codified ordinances strict gun controls and limitations and requirements for training, but all of those have been preempted by the legislature and the General Assembly saying, no, you can't do anything. So now we have permitless carry. We have the ability for people to have guns, and so it puts everyone at risk. Police officers don't know if the person they're encountering is armed. People who are walking down the street don't know if the other person is armed as well. And so it really creates this sense of uncertainty and fear And that creates this toxic cycle of the need or the belief that there is risk and crime and a need for more weapons.
Why has the state put these limitations on cities?
You know, there's a political dynamic there where people don't, I think, trust the cities to decide themselves. I think that there are people who believe that they are doing the right thing under the Constitution. But, you know, what we're looking at today is very different than, you know, we've had gun regulations, common sense gun regulations for decades. But the laws are starting to change. And that has made it much harder for Cleveland and for Mayor Bibb and our police force to crack down on guns.
One of the answers I hear is just hire more police. You know, if you hire, you know, dozens and dozens more, you'll put a stop or at least a curb crime. Is there a problem with that?
Yeah, there's no research to show that sprinkling more officers across the area evenly or putting more officers on the street is going to have a dent in crime. We need to use them in a more strategic way to address particular issues within the neighborhoods in Cleveland.
And let me follow up on the professor's point. You know, police are often reactive because they have to be. So we had a tragic shooting on West 6th Street. 9 people were killed. Shot. But that was at a time when there were police officers all throughout the warehouse districts. They couldn't prevent it. Did we catch the perpetrator? Yeah, we think so. But even with police presence in the warehouse district, on the street at the time, we couldn't stop the gunman from shooting people.
So one of the answers that I've heard mentioned is technology. If we can't pass laws that help the police, if we don't have enough police, hopefully with technology we can curb or stop some of these worst crimes. You're looking at that with Shotspotter, which actually is being piloted, I understand, by the city of Cleveland. Tell us about Shotspotter.
Right, so Shotspotter is a technology that puts auditory sensors within neighborhoods, and so it will hear or sense when there is something that sounds like a gunshot. It's reviewed by both AI and human reviewers, and then can be dispatched to the police within their own cars even, but also to the city dispatch. And the hope is that it will capture instances where people don't call the police when they hear gunshots or there's been a violent crime.
Let me follow up on that as
Please
well,
do.
because people don't always call when they hear gunshots. And you know, as we talk about technology, we also need to improve the relations between the police and the community, because only about 15% of gunshots are reported to 911. And so, as the professor was mentioning, Shotspotter will at least alert the police to that and will do so more quickly so that there can be a response. And that speed of response, according to EMS, say at least in the city of Cleveland, that we've saved 12 lives because we were able to respond more quickly. And we don't have to wait for concerned citizens who might not know what to do or might be concerned or for whatever reason don't call those shots in. We have Shotspotter to at least alert us to that.
So if I'm understanding correctly, this is for either one of you to answer. Shotspotter listens to things going on, and it can hear gunshots, identify gunshots, reports them to the police. Do the police send somebody out right away when they hear a shot from Shotspotter?
It's considered a priority 1, I believe, for every Shotspotter. But so, I mean, obviously there's other factors that determine how calls are dispatched, but it's a high priority call.
So there's already been a shot, though. They can't get out there before the shot.
Right.
So they don't stop the shooting. So what's the benefit of Shotspotter then?
Yeah, so the benefit is twofold, which is if there's a victim, EMS can get there more quickly and deliver life-saving care. The second piece is that, you know, it's important to follow up on a crime as quickly as possible. And so, you know, there's a better chance of finding witnesses or finding the suspects if you get there sooner rather than later.
Or evidence that may be left behind as well.
Well, when you talk about evidence, we're going to have Dr. Gilson on in a couple weeks from now, talking about the ballistics testing that they do. So it's my understanding that with Shotspotter, you can pinpoint where a shooting has occurred and pick up the evidence, pick up the shell casings, and you know, before they disappear, And shell casings have identifiers that can help you track down the gun and hopefully the shooter.
Right. Ideally, that would lead to more unsolved cases and linking offenders to those casings. But I would also say that the technology itself is not going to solve crimes. One thing that my team and I will be looking at is how the technology is only as good as it's used by the police. So how are the police responding to these calls? Are they, what are the procedures? What are they doing? How efficiently are they using the information they get from Shotspotter?
So one of the things that we have to do is understand Shotspotter is just a tool. So we have to train our police on how to use it. And this is a pilot program, so there are going to be mistakes. There are going to be things that we learn about how to use it better. It certainly is not a cure-all by any means. And it's really kind of one piece of technology that we're trying to implement in the city. And we'll see how it goes.
I think it's great that the city's trying new things. Cutting edge technology, it takes a while to get it right. But you're studying this now under contract with the city of Cleveland, if I understand it.
Right.
How far along are you on your study? Are you getting to a point where you'll be able to deliver results?
Well, not at this moment. No, we don't have any results to report. It's one of the questions, in addition to finding out how efficient and how well the technology is working with police, would be one of the things I think is very unique that's a part of this study, is studying potential effects it has on community trust in the police. And so one of the things that my team and I will be doing as well is to be going out into these neighborhoods where ShotSpotter is implemented, and we'll be looking to talk to the people, find out if they are aware of it, what they think about it, if their opinion of the police has changed or not, and really, because that is the best way to understand how it's working in any neighborhood or communities, to find out, straight from the residents.
Professor Kent is so right, because in some places that have tried ShotSpotter, they didn't really know how to implement it. So the police would go out and just interrogate people in the area. And that actually led to a decrease in trust. So one of the things that we're working on is to make sure that this is reinforcing trust, and that when the police go there, they know how to interact and they know how to ask the right questions. Because Professor Kent hits it right on the head that trust and communication is critical.
One of the reasons why we need to look to technology is because my understanding is that it's difficult to hire police right now everywhere, not just in Cleveland. It's difficult to hire anybody. I mean, you can't even go to a restaurant and get the service you need these days. I know that the city just significantly raised salaries. I mean, is that going to be the difference? How does the cities, either Cleveland and others, how do they cope with the difficulty in hiring police?
It's difficult across the country. I think that right now New York is saying 30% of their patrol slots are vacant. Hundreds of vacancies everywhere, whether you're in Los Angeles or Chicago. In Cleveland, I think we have about 250. That number varies, of slots that haven't filled. So Mayor Bibb has done a couple things. He's proposed a 50% pay increase for cadets, right. But also increased pay for veterans, for veteran police officers, as well as those who have some higher education, either community college or a four-year degree. But it's hard because the view of the police has changed. And one of the things that we are trying to reinforce is that connection with the community, because among some segments and among a margin of folks, the respect for the police and the desire to be a police officer is not as great as it used to be.
And this may be a sensitive question, Mark, and if it is, just let me know. But the city of Cleveland passed this law that creates this police review committee, which is made up of non-law enforcement people, and some suggest that it's a inhibiting factor to hiring police officers who don't want to be reviewed by people who don't understand law enforcement. Is that an issue for the city?
Yes and no, and no and yes. And so
And that's a law answer.
Of course, right. Look, issue 24, which created the police commission, was in response to very serious problems, 137 shots,
Right.
a legacy in the past of police violence. And so there's that which is discouraging some people who don't want to be police officers. But then the police officers do say, and I want to respect their views, that it is a factor for them. But as we look at it, again, the issues with recruitment are all across the country, regardless of whether there's
Right.
a community police commission or not. So I wouldn't tell you that officers don't feel that, but we're not really seeing it all that much. I think it's a really small piece of this bigger social construct that's inhibiting it. So I don't think it's a significant factor.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that I think we're not the only city who has this type of commission, and in fact, it's something that traditionally will increase the public's trust in the police because there is an independent agency reviewing any allegations of misconduct or any issues going on. So I think that Cleveland's moving in the right direction in terms of that. I think if you were to compare it to other community police or civilian police review boards across the country, they probably wouldn't be the most funded and have the most. I mean, maybe I think that the perception that they have so much power is a little bit, I don't want to say exaggerated, but not. I guess I don't see it as much of a problem. In fact, they might need more support than less.
As we talk about kind of technology, but also confidence in the police, my belief is that body-worn cameras and cameras on dashboards are tremendously important because the police know that they need to do the right thing, and they do the right thing.
Right.
But there's also proof whether they are or they're not. And so it lets us use technology to correct police conduct, but also to protect police. And one of the things that I see as we both investigate but also defend police officers is the technology of body-worn cameras is so important because the camera shows you everything.
Violence in our cities is a major problem today, and the difficulty in hiring enough police and putting them in the right places is significant, and that's a major reason why technology is so important. And I really appreciate what you guys have explained to our audience about technology and the importance and how it can be used. So I want to thank Mark and Stephanie for joining us today. You've been wonderful guests. Thank you both very much.
Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Pleasure.